Namaskar, dear seekers. Good evening to all of you. So tonight our live stream will be about how to overcome addictions. So I will be sharing some point for 30 minutes and with a solution also. And then after that, the remaining 30 minutes you can share your questions, your experience if you had obstacles also, and we can answer your questions. So first, in short, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Cyriaque. I come from France and I'm doing spiritual practice for more than 20 years. I live in India for more than 10 years doing full-time spiritual practice. And now for around 1 year and a half, we are traveling around Europe with a caravan. So we are going city per city, meeting different seekers and curious also who are interested about spirituality. As we are speaking today, tonight we are actually in Hamburg. It is in north of Germany. And I would like to share about SSRF, that is the acronym of the Spiritual Science Research Foundation. It was founded in 2006 with the blessing of His Holiness Dr. Vallee, that is a saint from India. And SSRF has two main objectives. One objective is to explain about the spiritual dimension and how it can affect our life. So we have a lot of articles, more than 700 articles. All is published free of charge on the website, so you can read and study this knowledge. And the second main objective is to guide the seeker in their spiritual journey all the way to God realization. So we have a platform where we have a group of, we can say, online meeting. We call it also satsang, where seekers come from all over the world. So we have in different languages and different time zones. And here seekers come together where they share their obstacles, their experience also, and get individual guidance how to go ahead in their spiritual journey. And about the University of Spirituality that was also founded by His Holiness Dr. Vallee. And the university has the objective to re-establish how it used to be in ancient India, that there are one principle in spirituality. There are many paths to God as there are people on earth. So how we can grow spiritually through dance, through music, through different art like painting and different type of arts. This is actually the aim of the university, is to teach the importance of spiritual practice and how we can grow through a specific heart and attain God realization. And we also do a lot of research using biofeedback device to also show how the spiritual dimension affect us and what can be good for us if we do some certain type of practice. So what we will do before we start our session tonight, we will chant or meditate for just 2 minutes so that the mind will become stable, and then we will start with our live stream tonight. So first I will ask you, you can close your eyes. We will play a divine chant, and we will you can focus on breathing. You can either repeat in your mind or you can meditate.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
Okay, dear seeker, you can open your eyes and then we will start with the live stream. So if some of you are just joining us now, in tonight topic will be about how to overcome addictions, and I will be sharing some point and spiritual concept for 30 minutes, and the remaining 30 minutes can be your questions. If you have experience or obstacles, that you can type in the chat and we will take your questions live. So about addictions, when it comes to addictions, it is a worldwide phenomena that have affect millions of people across the world. And at personal level, it can cause also numerous problems, and it can also ruins people's life. And sometimes, despite a lot of efforts towards addiction rehabilitations to about harmful substances, the actually relapse rate is quite high. So there are various types of addiction in today's time. One is maybe the most common that we know is as per chemical addictions, and that is more the addictions that involve harmful substances such as alcohol. We can say some people also take medications, morphine, cannabis. There is also nicotine from cigarettes. There is also medicine like amphetamine, cocaine, methamphetamine, and the list can be very long. And there is what we call also that is less known. It's about behavioral addictions, and that refer to the addictions that involve a compulsive behavior. So it can be gambling, video games, we can say social media, mobile phone, or we can say overeating or not eating at all. So those types of addictions actually has become more widespread and especially affect the young generation. And even in today's time, we saw parents even have problems of removing children, we can say, from either video game or use of mobiles. And when we go a little bit deeper in the spiritual research into addictions, when we look at the high relapse rate of addictions that actually can be explained by spiritual research, that most addiction have their root cause in the spiritual dimension. And in spiritual dimension, spiritual research, we have found that 40% of the cause of addictions are caused due to negative energy, or we can say ghost, affecting a person or departed ancestors. And when we come to the relapse of addicted behaviors, which is actually quite high, and the cure rate also is quite low. And this because actually the treatment is mainly focused on the physical or psychological level, while actually the spiritual cause are quite neglected. If what I share now, if you have any questions about what I'm sharing, don't hesitate to type in the chat. So just to see about due to the spiritual nature now of the cause of addictions, we have found that spiritual healing or spiritual practice along with medical treatment can give a much higher cure rate, as a person is actually able to come off the addiction in a much faster way and also in a more lasting manner. And we have actually made at SSRF a 3-step spiritual program that you can do by yourself at home to be independent, because it helps to fight the negativity, because we have seen that 40% is actually caused due to the negative energy, or we can say ancestor problem. Because spiritual healing remedy or measures helps to reduce the intensity, we can say, of the withdrawal of symptoms. And it is important to remember that prevention is more important than cure. And what we are also saying is spiritual healing measures, along with regular spiritual practice, it acts as a spiritual protections from the negative energies. Because actually we create positivity within us and it gives us a protective shield. And what is one principle also about healing is the principle is behind any spiritual treatment or healing is to increase the spiritual purity within us and to decrease the spiritual impurity within us. So there are 3 simple steps that you can do. One step is to repeat the protective chant of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya for a minimum of 2.5 hours per day. This is principle that I share often in our live stream, that name, form and energy coexist. So when you repeat a divine chant, or we can say sometimes some people say a divine mantra, it attracts that positivity or that divine principle within you, and that acts as a protective shield. And this name, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, why we recommend in today's time? Because it has the potency and capacity to fight the negative energy or negative vibration that is in much higher proportion everywhere today. There is this second name or mantra also that we recommend. It is the second step, is to repeat this protective chant of Shri Gurudev Datta for 1.5 hours per day. And this name of Shri Gurudev Datta, actually it is this mantra or name that helps to overcome problem caused by ancestor problem. And just in short, I would like to share that ancestor problem or ancestors is a subtle body of a person who is in the afterlife. And because they are stuck, in a way they come to their descendant, and if they have unfulfilled desires and they don't have gross body, so they will actually, through the body of their descendant, fulfill their craving or addictions. So very quite often we have seen that addictions are more due to cause of ancestors. And in SSRF we have many case studies that I invite you to read on the website of many different seekers who overcome different type of problems and different type of addiction just by repeating that simple chant of Shri Gurudev Datta. We will play afterwards also, and we will chant together so that you can memorize and understand the chant or the mantra. And the third simple step is a salt water treatment. This is a very simple remedy that we will paste also the link in the chat, because that it is quite also old remedy and simple, because the water and the rock salt have the ability to suck out the black energy affecting us. And it's just a simple remedy that you can do at home. It's just 15 minutes per day. So even you can watch that video, it is self-explanatory, and we have also many seekers across the world, regardless of the culture or religion, because if you look at it, those remedy is more at the principle level, and seekers have overcome different problems. So what I would like to do now with you, we can play the first step, that is a chant of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is what we also play in the beginning of the live stream. We will play it for 2 minutes, just so that you get familiar. You can just close your eyes and listen to the chant. We will play now the chant for 2 minutes.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। 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 ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय.
So now we have played the chant of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You can download the chant free of charge on the website. We'll also paste the link. And now we will play the second chant, that is Shri Gurudev Datta. We'll also play for around 1.5 to 2 minutes so that you can get more familiar with the chant.
Sri Gurudev Datta.
Or if you find
Sri
difficult, you can just listen, or you can say out
Datta.
loud. But if you can follow
Sri
the rhythm and do
Gurudev
it in mind, it is better.
Datta. Sri Gurudev 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 Datta.
Okay, we can stop now. Hope you were able to see. But we share now that we just did 1 minute to 2 minutes just so that you get familiar how it can be repeated in mind. So just to see now, maybe some of you may be overwhelmed by what I say, because if you combine now repeating the first and second step, it becomes 4 hours to repeat per day. But just to see now, initially you can start by few minutes per day. So you can start, some of you can see how you can do by just doing sit down chanting 5-10 minutes, doing in morning, in afternoon if you can, or at night also. So initially try to start slowly. Ultimately the 4 hours is a goal, but you can start slowly 5-10 minutes and keep on increasing. And you can try to do also during activity, random activity such as driving, cooking, walking, that doesn't require any intellectual, we can say, interactions. At that time it is something you can do, and more you chant and more you will get the benefit. So just like that, try to start stepwise. Also what we recommend is, in beginning of this treatment, you don't have to stop to take substances that you are taking, because what we have seen, somebody just say, okay, now I will start taking the treatment, but I should not smoke. But the person is so much consumed by the thought of smoking that is not able to concentrate with repeating the chant or the mantra. So that's why initially, not to worry, more important is to increase the chant or the steps, step 1 and step 2. And with time, when you become more regular, we can say by doing those 3 steps, then slowly try to make efforts to reduce the intake of the substance that you are taking. It will become easier to overcome. And one important aspect in this program, it's something that's it to overcome addiction. If some of you may have addictions, different types, it can be sometimes just 1 year, but some can be 10, 20 years or 30 years. So the habit of the impressions is quite strong, especially if it is reinforced by negative energy, then there is a force of the negative energy behind. So for that, it takes time, it will take some time to overcome the addiction fully. So it requires some consistency and discipline. But it is very important also that desire, see, this program is one aspect. But the other aspect is very important to have that will and that desire that I want to overcome. I want to overcome these addictions. There are some people who, despite good desire, good will, they can't overcome. Why? Because the spiritual root cause is from negative energy, and we are not addressing the spiritual dimension, it becomes impossible. But some, if it is just at a psychological or physical level, with good will, the person may be able to overcome. And just wanted to also share to many of you that we have many seekers who were able to overcome quite also high level of addictions. I would like to emphasize on one point that this addiction treatment program is at a spiritual level, and it can be done along with treatment that has been also prescribed with doctors or psychiatrists. So we recommend, it is very important not to stop any medical treatment. So we came to know that some people do that, they don't want to take help from doctors, but it is needed to take care at the physical and psychological level. So just wanted to share also about this in regards to the behavioral addictions such as mobile phone, internet, social media, surfing on the screen, because some people can spend sometimes hours on the screen. So beside the 3 steps such as chanting as well as saltwater treatment, we also recommend an auto-suggestion technique, and this is from the process of overcoming defect of personality. It's just that this auto-suggestion technique is to create a positive sentences that will actually overcome the negative impression in our subconscious mind. So just to give 1 or 2 examples, it would be like, let's say, whenever I feel like browsing the internet, I will become aware that I will waste my time and energy. I will stop. I will go back to my planning and focus on chanting. So like that, when that sentence or type of sentence is repeated many, many times in the mind, what happens is when we get that feeling to browse the internet, at that time a thought will come and say, no, I'm going to waste my time now. Let me go back to my normal planning and focus on chat. And then we are able to overcome. Or let's say some for playing video games. Whenever I feel like playing video game, I will become aware that it will affect me or it will waste my time. So I will stop and focus on chanting. So like that, there are different techniques of autosuggestions that you can do that can help for, we can say, video game, wasting time in social media, such as different type of social media on the mobile phone, or as well on the net. Because we have seen, maybe some of you can calculate also how many hours you spend per day. Then you may be surprised to know how much time we are losing, how much time we are wasting. We had also in the past workshop where we explained about research in regards to social media, or we can say video game, how much it can affect us at our spiritual level. We have done this research using UTS scanner that measures the aura, and we have seen that when a person play video game with more violent or even different social media, the person's positive aura may become nullified, or the person can even develop negative aura. Especially if we want to grow spiritually, that will be an obstacle. But just to understand that even such type of addictions can create obstacle in our daily life. So I wanted to share again, I think I share in short about things that despite the side of the point I share about these 3 steps, repeating God's name, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and Shri Gurudev Datta, and the salt water remedy, that consistency in spiritual practice is very important. And I share also about having that intense desire or desire to quit that addictions, and also having the faith in God, that if I do spiritual practice, it will help me to overcome my addiction. So just to conclude on that actually spiritual practice will be the protections from addictive behaviors. And when we do regular spiritual practice, we can overcome addiction. That is possible, even though they may be in our destiny. Because through spiritual practice, it helps us to overcome our negative destiny. And not only you are able to overcome, we can say, an addictions or a problem, but the more important is we are able to go towards positivity. We are able to experience happiness or even bliss from inside that is superior than happiness, that is devoid or any stimulus. And just I would like to again emphasize on this, that spiritual treatment is not a substitute for medical treatment, and as well medical treatment is not a substitute for a spiritual treatment. And we have found that when we club all aspects, physical treatment or psychological treatment along with spiritual healing remedy, this is where the cure become much more rapid. So I just, for you those who are watching tonight, if you feel you are experiencing different type of addiction, you should try, because ultimately here we have nothing to lose, and this is something you can do at home. And I encourage you also to read the different case study of seekers who have overcome different type of addictions. So dear seekers, I will go now to your questions and read your questions. So you can type questions, whether you had experience or obstacles, you can share. There is a questions now. Nice, we have few questions. So there is a question from Shital Khanna. How can we persuade a young boy to quit addiction? So Shital, it depends now. When they are young, ultimately we should see whether there is a counseling. It depends on the age. Of course, parents are the best sometimes to speak, but sometimes they may have, it should be done in a good way, not to have that expectation. So sometimes counseling is good to find somebody who understands, who can speak to the young boy. At the same time, if we can tell him this spiritual practice, chanting God's name, sometimes they may be reluctant to chant. So at that time, what you can do, you can play the chant in low tone in their room when they sleep, because this during the night it will act as a healing remedy. Of course, the best if the child is able himself to chant, that will be always the best. But if not, then if you play the divine chant, at that time it will go and create that protection during the night. And sometimes this salt water remedy may be something that they may be able to accept. And you can see after, depending on the addiction they have, because there are some addictions who are more severe when it comes to illegal substances. At that time, definitely we need help from a doctor. But when it comes to, let's say, video game or social media or mobile phone, at that time, sometimes we may not go to a doctor, but parents should try to see how to help them. And that autosuggestion technique also you can try. There's another question from Eshwara Koparti. I'm a chain smoker. I have tried to practice Sri Gurudev Datta chant many times, but could not continue it for more than 2 days. I really want to get rid of the smoking thought and cravings. Ishwara, it's a good thing actually for me. I would like to share my experience. I used to smoke cigarette actually, and I used to smoke 1 pack per day. And even sometime when I would go out, I would even find myself smoking 2 packs of cigarettes. And that was shocking me also. And I was thinking, what is wrong with me? When I chanting Shri Gurudev Datta, I was able to overcome within 3 days. Because probably for me that addiction was actually 100% from the spiritual dimension. But it is important, and see, you were chanting only for 2 days. You can't chant more than 2 days. So it can be that also the negativities try to stop you. But try what you can do, Aishwarya, try to do this salt water remedy. If you can try to do every day. If you can try those steps now to repeat Sri Gurudev Datta. If you can't chant and you find the stopping, at least play the chant during the day, in low tone in the house and during the night. And try those different healing remedy also that we suggest on the website. And if you have any question, you can always ask us on the live chat. Because ultimately it is possible, the chance that if for you can't do more than 2 days, then the chance maybe it comes from the spiritual dimension. So in a way it is possible to overcome. See, if sometimes the addiction is purely psychological or physical, at that time it may be difficult to overcome. But if it is spiritual in nature, we have found seekers that they experience that suddenly it depends, because for everybody is different. It may take 2 days, 2 months, 6 months, but it suddenly stops or reduced. So Ishwara, you can try it and just remember that you have that desire to overcome, that consistency is important, and this aspect also of that God, developing the faith in God, that if I do spiritual practice, I will be able to overcome. So if you try also to do spiritual practice, you may be able to overcome with time. How to say that it is a certainty that when we do spiritual and we make progress, it is bound to happen, where the negative energy affecting us will have to go, and automatically this addiction will stop. What you may experience, some of the seekers that we know, what they are experiencing. They are experiencing that sometimes they are able to stop, but there are some small relapse. But instead of the addictions, instead of being severe, it becomes less severe. And then also they are able to stop for a longer period. So like that, it depends. For some it is drastic from one day to another, and for some it goes by phases. And what you can try to do, sometimes if you can't chant, listen to the chant. I mean, you can, I say playing in the home, but you can also put it in your ears, especially when you sit with concentrations. At that time, listen to the chant. There is another question from Satish Chandna. The suggested chant is a sit-down chant, or chant while working is also fine. So Satish, whatever we say about chanting, it is always better if we can do it with sit-down concentration. But here we speak about 4 hours. For some who are having an ethic life, always in working, family to take care, it may be difficult to find so many hours. So whatever you can do in sit-down chanting will be more beneficial. And if you chant during, let's say, work, that may be also, it depends on the work you do, because there are some work who require more intellectual interactions, and sometimes there are work who are more random, so that is easier to chant. But when you are walking, cooking, driving, commuting, at that time we are not to do any involvement in the intellect so much. At that time it is easier to chant. But you can see it will depend on the work that you perform. But ultimately what we should try to do, we should try to chant the most we can. There's another question from Rose Queen Babani. I am told that unless one is initiated by a guru before the person can chant, how true is that? So actually, Rose Queen, about chanting God's name or repeating a mantra, it is not like initiated to guru, because sometimes it may refer to what we say guru mantra. So actually, automatically now when we repeat God's name, and we have so many seekers who repeat God's name as per their religions, or sometimes they are not attached to their religion of birth, so they chant the universal chant. And at that time, actually what happens now, when we do spiritual practice or when we repeat God's name and we grow spiritually, ultimately we get God's blessing. Because guru, actually what we say is called guru tattva, it's a principle. So guru doesn't have to always be in a physical form. But by doing spirituality or spiritual practice, we always can get this, what we can say, guru blessing or the blessing of God. So we don't have to wait for an initiation to start chanting. We can start. See, for me also, I used to live in Italy when I started to chant. I didn't go to India. And I got that spiritual experience and I started chanting automatically. I went to India after 1 year when I met my spiritual master or guru. But the chanting started before. And when I started chanting, at that time I experienced a lot of changes. Whether it was El Meri or I was repeating also Shri Gurudev Datta. I hope it answers your question. Rose Queen, you can also type on the chat. It is another question from Santosh Pai. My brother has alcohol addictions. To overcome this, when we inform him to chant Shri Gurudev Datta, he will do half an hour for 1 day, but again it continue again same addiction. How to convey to him? So Santosh, is same thing that we say, no? When you start this process, it is not like they will quit the addictions, but we can help them to see how they can persist, continue to do the different steps. One is repeating Shri Gurudev Datta, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and the salt water treatment. So not to worry about that part, that okay, they continue with the addiction, but more to focus that he continue the steps of healing remedies. There's another question from Mrunmel. I am addicted to my smartphone, but I also need it in my daily life. I often start chanting later because of using the phone. I also do salt water. What can you recommend? So Mrunmel, yes, there are many persons that we know, and seeker as well, who sometimes have, we can say, addictions. It can be to different social media platforms where a lot of time gets spent. So some, what they do, there is some app where you can block, you can remove the special platform on your mobile. So some were doing that, so it's quite helpful, because ultimately if you delete the platform, you can use it. Some happen, what happens, they delete, but then they re-upload. But there is some app, I think, that can help to block, to download such type of applications. This is something you can do. And same, you can try that auto-suggestions also. Like whenever I feel to watch, you can say what is the name of the platform on my smartphone. I will become aware that I'm losing time. I will stop and focus on chanting. So it is something that you can do. I will share also another technique, but that is the last resort that I would like to share with you about that auto-suggestion technique. We have different type of techniques, and one technique, if all the techniques of auto-suggestions fail, or we can say different things you tried is not working, you can always resort to what we call the another technique called C2 technique is to pinch self. So let's say it works because we recommend, let's say, in the different defects such as anger or addictions, because see, ultimately we have to realize that whether getting angry and shouting to somebody or having addictions to different substances or addiction to, let's say, platforms online or smartphones can in long run ruin my life. So better I do something, I should overcome it, because in some case we may lose partners, for some you may lose jobs. It depends for everybody. So sometimes it is better to, in a way, be more strict with oneself. So this technique is more like whenever I feel like using my smartphone, or whenever I feel to shout to somebody, or when it comes to addiction, whenever I feel to take alcohol, I will become aware and I will pinch myself and start chanting. Because see, mind understand pain. It is one way, but ultimately this is what we don't want to do that. It is in a way when you have tried everything and it doesn't work, you can always try this technique. So Mrunmel, don't try with this pinching self. First try with a normal autosuggestion. Huh? If you have any question about what I share, also you can ask. Huh? There is another question from Pradeep Mayura. How to overcome addiction of mobile phone? So I think Pradeep, probably what I shared before to Mrunmel just now, maybe if it helps also, you can try. Ultimately, see, we should try this aspect of autosuggestions as well as healing remedy, because when it comes to mobile phone, usually it is like a leisure time, so it is also a psychological factor. Huh? So at that time, autosuggestion can be quite helpful. From another question from AGP, how can I tell my child to quit addiction of video games and mobile? So AGC depends of your child. Ultimately, see about video game, the mistakes that sometimes parents does, they just buy the, I don't know what to say in English, the console, the video game set. So either you actually don't have this video game at home, because that actually may help the child not to use video game. That's sometimes not always a solution, because they may go to some other places and friends. But you can see after, depending on the child, how they behave and response. But for some it depends. For some we can say, see, if you do that but you don't get this, we have to understand that ultimately for a young child or a young person, video game or mobile can be very detrimental, much more than adult. Why? Because a child has to develop, we can say, different quality or ability, such as communication, live with others. And what we have seen is, in regards to video games or mobile phone, it's a new type of disease called FOMO, where the person start to develop more anxiety or fear and worry due to those uh, platforms. So actually, for a young person, it is much more destructive than what we think. So in a way, we should be strict to a child if we want them for a good future. Of course, it should be done in a wise way. We should understand our expectations, not to go also say with anger. It is important to see whether you want help of counseling, somebody to help you, to help your child to overcome, and you can always drive them towards something that either we can say chanting, meditation, or some thing that is more, we can say, better than sports. We can say, let's say some sport will have a better thing than actually playing video games. But of course, if we can tell them to chant, that may help. But of course, the young generation may want something else. But ultimately, yourself, if you work on yourself, chant. It's important. If you chant and you also take auto-suggestions how to behave with your sons, you will be able to handle the situation in a better way. Why? Because if you chant, your mind will be more calm. And if you work on your defects such as worry, naturally, or emotionalism, then you will be able to remain in a more stable mind. So you will be able to handle the situation in a better way. So for yourself, it's not to think how I will just help my child to overcome addiction, but I need to also work on myself so I can handle that situation better. There is another question from Sukumar. Let me know what is the way to avoid addictions in Yaba. It's a mixture of methamphetamine and caffeine in a tablet form and iPhone. What is the remedy to overcome drug and substance addictions? So when it comes to methamphetamine, or we can say medications, it is the same way. Some people, whether the person take different substances, alcohol, or we can say some people take some type of medicines such as a drug. So it is in a way we recommend the same step, Sukumar. It is in a way the healing remedy and chanting God's name, because what happened, as I share in the script, is we increase the positivity within us and we decrease the negativity within us. And automatically all those substances like methamphetamine are more chemicals. So ultimately when the body becomes more positive, automatically the feeling or the need to smoke or addictions or taking medicine, we start reducing. So the remedy we share now, these 3 steps, and especially doing spiritual practice, that is the best medicine we can do. There is another question from Petra. If we don't observe change in addiction despite of implementing the recommending healing, does it always mean it is more psychological in nature? Petra, that is a good question. So again, what I share, there are 2 factors. One is, yes, it can be sometimes, because see, in regards to nicotine, no, it can sometimes be at physical level, because after some time it becomes, the body get addicted. So if somebody smoke for 20 years, 30 years, then the body will also, it will come at the physical level. That addiction will reach at the level of a need or we can say physical. And there is this also habit at a psychological level. So that can be 2 aspects. And when it comes from the spiritual dimension, it will depend on the strength of the negative energy affecting the person. Let's say if the person is affected just by an ancestor, and the ancestor is not a strong ancestor or is not addict, so at that time the person can overcome the addiction faster. But if the person is, let's say, it is a negative energy with an addict, actually the negative energy is an addict itself, at that time the addiction is much stronger. It is much higher or difficult to overcome, but just better to persist, because when we do spiritual practice, there is a certainty that we can overcome it. So at the level of physical and psychological, we can work on it and continue our spiritual practice. There is also from Ramya another question. Children with autism or such special need where they don't have control of their fingers or toes and keep jumping or flapping hand, despite therapy and so on, those remain as habit. I personally feel that to do with a spiritual reason, these kids tend to not overcome those habits with beyond physical realm. How should we handle autistic or PDD kids to overcome repetitions? So Ramya, just wanted to share with you about what we say about mental illnesses. we have autism, OCD, we have schizophrenia, different type of mental illnesses. But in a way, it is same. It has also an important root cause that often also the person may be affected by negative energy or ancestor problem. So at that time same, the person has to be treated at a psychological level, and also to work on this to do spiritual practice, because it is also in mental illnesses there is an important root cause of the spiritual dimension. We have on our website different case studies of seekers who suffered from OCD, from also schizophrenia or different type of mental illnesses, and some were able to overcome to a great extent. Some were able to overcome fully, some were able to overcome to a great extent, and some who had actually not easy life due to the mental illnesses, with the spiritual healing remedy of practice, they still have struggle, but they are able to live a stable life. There is another question from Ragini Kumari. Okay, this is a comment. I want to join this organization. So Ragini, you can always join. We have Satsang, this group online where seeker can join, where you can learn about spiritual practice. You can ask also questions on the live chat. We will paste in the chat the link where you can attend the group of seekers. There is another from Eshwara. I am confused between Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and Shri Gurudev Datta. Which one should I chant? I will start this from now on. I mean, which one is more effective? So Aishwarya, see, you can, when we speak about Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, that is more for, we can say, the negative energy affecting a person. And Shri Gurudev Datta will take care more about ancestor problem. So in your case, you may not know whether it is actually ancestor problem affecting us or negative energy affecting. Most of the time, the chance is to be more from, we can say, ancestor problem. So initially, you can chant both. And later on, you may be able to experience which chant helps you the most. Don't start to judge by now. Try to chant at least for 2-3 months as per it is prescribed, and then see after. You may be able to see that when, let's say, you chant Sri Gurudev Datta, the need of addiction become less. So it may be the other way around, that when you chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the craving is reducing. So that it is something that you may be experienced, but do that after some time. And just wanted to share also to all of you that when it will become new moon and full moon, you can study for yourself whether at that time the need for addiction or for substances or whatever is a different type of addiction, whether you are experiencing more craving or there is suddenly an increase in that desire. Because if you are able to catch it and understand that during that full moon and new moon period, you feel it, you will be able to understand that actually this is more from the spiritual dimension. Even though we may understand by intellect sometimes that yes, maybe negative energy is affecting me. But until unless we experience it from inside, or we have that strong belief or understanding that actually it is caused by negative energy affecting me, at that time we are able more to have a resolve or to have that determination to fight this negative energy from the subtle dimension. So if you can try that, study your thoughts, your desire and your craving during new moon and full moon, and if you experience it, you will start to have more conviction that actually addiction are under the influence or was aggravated and magnified by negative energy. And that helps a lot. Why? Because we stop blaming self. Many times we say, I can't stop it. We blame ourselves, but we don't realize that negative energy or ancestor take a big part in it. I hope it answers your question, Aishwara. And don't hesitate, if you have any question, you can always write on the live chat. There's another question from Jessica Notes. Damage needs to be healed and recognized to understand where the trigger comes from. Do you not feel that it is smart to figure out what got it to what in the first place? Addiction stems from something that hasn't yet been acknowledged. See, Jessica, whether the person had experienced trauma in their childhood or something happened that created an addiction because the person gets disturbed. So what can happen is something has happened, and because of that event or that situation or childhood, the person want to escape the mind, so go towards those substances. But ultimately we want to overcome the substances because it affects us, no? At body level, mind level, intellectual level, and spiritual level. So we can work on this aspect of overcoming the addiction, and at the same time we can work on overcoming the different situation, or we can call it also sometimes trauma, that the person have faced. We have also seekers who have experienced traumas, but this solution that we also suggested of this autosuggestion techniques helps to overcome impression from the past, and to understand also, Jessica, that whatever has happened in our life is because of destiny. So in today's time, we are in a period where we experience more unhappiness than happiness. And many people around the world today, regardless of the country or religion, are experiencing problems in life. But it is a solution by spiritual practice, so we can treat at both levels, overcoming the past impressions and overcoming the addiction also. And that is possible by doing spiritual practice. And like that, we have different seekers who were able to overcome addiction as well as traumas from the past. I hope that helps your question, Jessica. There is a comment from Pradeep. He said, it is becoming late at night, whether we want to change shift. We can see if some of you want to suggest some different timing, you can always feel free to send us message what will be the most time. Of course, there is, now you are watching from different country around the world, so of course we need to adjust, no, after the time zone. But we can suggest if there is some time that, and if we see that many of you suggest the same time, we may try to adapt also. There is another question from Aslav. How to identify the habit developed? Is it due to the effect of ancestral problem, negative or energy, or effect of our planetary positions? How to recognize it is due to our own thoughts or mind? So that is a good question. As I see, ultimately it is something very hard to understand for a common man. We can't understand. Only a saint or a very high level will be able to say whether what we are suffering, it is due to ancestral problem, negative energy, or the position of planets. But just to understand a very simple solution is when we do spiritual practice, automatically what happens? That positivity within us increase. So it reduces the destiny. It overcomes the problem caused by negative energy or ancestor problem. And whatever is the position of planets, also that gets solved. So whatever is the problem, for us to understand, see whether I say, okay, you suffer from ancestor, or we said you suffer from planet position. But what you will do, what is important is solution, no? And solution is spiritual practice for any of those different problem or factors. the solution is the same. But we want easy solution, not to overcome problem in life. And just to understand that to overcome destiny or addiction, different type of addictions or problems that we face, it takes time, it takes effort, but it is possible. So more important is we should have that conviction, that determination, and that discipline also. Not only we can overcome unhappiness, but more important, spirituality, if we make progress, can lead us to bliss or experiencing God within. And then we are able to experience God, or we can experience a happy life. Because ultimately, every individual should be able to make spiritual progress and experience happiness. So dear seeker, we will stop for today live stream. So first I would like to share about, it's nice that you ask different questions. So today is Wednesday, so Wednesday, so Thursday and Saturday will be the next collective chanting meditation. So we will place the chat so you can join. It is coming together where we can chant collectively. We actually play one of the healing chant that we have seen in the 3 steps. It is something just have to sit and then concentrate on the chant for 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And next week we will have also another live stream of question answer, and will be about the 5 ways that Halloween affect us. So dear seeker, I hope you learned something, and remember that what I shared before is you should give it a try. We should try at least few months and see if you are able to experience some changes. And feel free always to reach out to us. Namaskar dear seeker, and good evening.